This is Radio Kuwait. The current time is 11:50 p.m. local. Hello and welcome to this news update. I'm Kayan Sadiq. Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Adil Al-Jubair said today that his country would send troops to Syria under the US-led coalition if a decision was taken to widen it. Jubair said during a news conference in Riyadh with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres that his country was in discussions with the US and had been since the beginning of the Syrian crisis about sending forces into Syria. He said that Riyadh had previously proposed this idea to former US President Barack Obama. Syrian state television said that experts from the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons entered the Syrian town of Douma today. Douma was the town where the suspected gas attack took place on April 7th and was followed by missile strikes by the United States, Britain, and France. France said it was very likely that evidence of the poison gas attack was disappearing before the inspectors could reach the site. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said today that Russia, as an ally of the Syrian regime, bore joint responsibility for the chemical attack in eastern Ghouta, but she stressed that she still intended to keep talking to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Speaking at a news conference with her New Zealand counterpart, Merkel said that she expected to meet Putin in the foreseeable future, but there was no Moscow plays a key role in any peaceful resolution in Syria. Britain's opposition Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn said today that it was time for the Parliament to take back control over UK military action in the wake of cruise missile strikes against Syria. Corbyn told MPs that Prime Minister Theresa May should have sought approval from Parliament before taking a decision to join the US-led strikes on Syria. May defended her decision and said a convention that MPs should be consulted on foreign interventions ahead of action was being incorrectly interpreted. United Nations Yemen mediator Martin Griffiths told the United Nations Security Council today that he plans to put the 15-member body a framework for negotiations to end the conflict within 2 months. He also warned that there were unconfirmed reports that movements of forces in Yemen are on the increase and that prospects of intensive military operations around Hodeidah port might be forthcoming. Yemen's UN ambassador told reporters that there are no plans to have an advance on Hodeidah. And finally, in the news, members of France's lower house approved today a contested railway reform that has led angered rail workers to hold rolling strikes, heavily disrupting train travel across the country. The National Assembly voted 454 against 80 in favor of the bill, which includes the end of jobs for life, automatic annual pay rises, and early retirement rights. Rail workers' unions have been organizing rolling strikes since April 3rd to protest the reform. And now moving on to business news. U.S. stocks rose about 1% today, helped by gains in technology companies and as strong earnings from Netflix and United Health boosted optimism over what is expected to be the strongest earnings season in 7 years. Netflix shares rose 10% to hit an all-time high after the video streaming pioneer smashed analysts' quarterly subscriber estimates. United Health jumped 3% after the largest U.S. health insurer raised its earnings forecast and posted results that beat Wall Street estimates. Overall, the Dow Jones Industrial was up 0.88%, the S&P 500 rose 1%, and the Nasdaq Composite gained 1.67%. And in sports news, Desiree Linden became the first American to win the Boston Marathon's women's race in 33 years as amateur Yuki Kawauchi won the men's event. Two-time Olympian Linden crossed the line in 2 hours, 39 minutes, and 54 seconds in wet conditions. This marked a great accomplishment since Lisa Larson Weidenbach had been the last American to win the Boston Marathon since back in 1985. Lewis Hamilton arrived in China's last weekend to the Chinese Grand Prix, saying he had been gearing up his team, emphasizing that they needed a perfect weekend from everybody to try to eat into his points deficit to Sebastian Vettel after the Ferrari driver's win in Bahrain. However, Hamilton suddenly had a woeful final practice session, having a massive spin exiting turn 10 and many other off-track excursions. And it was all that surprising when he was outperformed by his teammate Valtteri Bottas in qualifying for the second time in succession. And meanwhile, for the weather, as for the weather conditions, tonight it's currently fair with light to moderate variable winds with speeds from 6 to 28 kilometers per hour. Minimum expected temperature tonight is 20 degrees Celsius. As for tomorrow, it's expected to be hot with light to moderate northern winds with speeds from 10 to 35 kilometers per hour. Maximum expected temperature is 32 degrees Celsius and the minimum is 20 degrees Celsius. That's all from us for now. Thank you for joining us.